All right, next we are on to the blue cards, and we're starting with a fucking banger. We're starting with Arcane Denial. Arcane Denial is a common interrupt or an instant these days that costs one and a blue. Counter target spell. That spell's caster may draw up to two cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, and then you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So this is a hard counter spell that costs one and a blue and fucking replaces itself. This is insane. This is if this card didn't draw your opponent two cards, this card would be way too fucking good. It would be insane. Uh, but it does draw your opponent two cards, which means this card is, oh man, in my opinion, probably the most balanced hard counter that costs less than two blue mana that they've ever come up with. I mean, even just counterspell is probably not healthy for the game. It depends on where you're balancing it around, obviously. And with a small card pool of anything under 1,000, anything can be balanced properly, depending on what everything else is doing. But in most situations, it's like if you're trying for a standard level, it's kind of a bit much. Arcane Denial, I don't know. I don't think this one is too much per se. It certainly can be. I don't know if this would be something they would want rocking around in standard, but I think it'd be funny. Yeah, Arcane Denial is really interesting. It's pretty okay in Commander, or at least popular in Commander. I think part of that is because drawing your opponent two cards after countering their shit is less of a feel bad, and that's really important to a lot of Commander groups. It replaces itself, which is nice. It's incredibly splashable, right? Like some decks that would be hesitant to play Counterspell will play Arcane Denial. If you're comboing off on that turn and they don't even get to another upkeep, then that it doesn't matter at all. So Arcane Denial definitely has some strengths, but it has some weaknesses too. I mean, being able to protect your combo is pretty rough. So like if they maybe this isn't the most balanced. Maybe you can't balance like a hard counter for one in a blue. I don't know. Arcane Denial is interesting. It did like forever ago see like some CEDH play, I think. But even in like 2017, people in like not CEDH were talking about maybe Arcane Denial sucks. So it's definitely not as popular, at least not at the in the tryhardy levels of Commander, but it is I think it is more acceptable in casual these days. Hard to say. Every group is different, right? Like the generalizing on Commander is just the stupidest thing you can do. I guess I don't know what else to say here about Arcane Denial. In Limited, it's interesting because decking can come up, and so if you are playing Arcane Denial and drawing them cards isn't as terrible if you were planning on drawing them all of their cards anyways and just winning via having better cards. And you just have like a shitload of counter spells and a shitload of flyers and a couple of like toughness dudes and maybe some banding going around, and you can just like prevent them from ever getting anything accomplished. You can just win that way. And Arcane Denial is pretty good in that instance because especially if it's early before they realize that they might deck out, they'll be much more willing to draw the cards. So in Limited, this can be pretty decent. Obviously, it's a hard counter spell. Those are pretty good anywhere. But counter spells are also hard to use, especially in Limited, unless you really know the card pool, because some things just look really good and you really didn't have to worry about them at all, and other things look stupid as fuck and they are broken in Limited, or at least incredibly consistent. Um, yeah, I guess that's really all I have on Arcane Denial. It's an incredible counterspell, but I'm talking way too much on this. This was illustrated by Richard Kane Ferguson, and I love the art on this. This one is a common, like I said, so there are two arts here. This one is very, very cool. But this one is not bad either. I think the first one is my favorite, but they're both very, very cool. I'm a big fan of Richard's work. I like it. He did a lot of the legendary creatures that I happen to enjoy a lot, but his work here is great as well. But yeah, that's Arcane Denial. So let's move on. All right, so here's a card that won't take anywhere near as long to talk about. This is Awesome Presence, another common. This is an enchant creature that costs a single blue mana. Enchanted creature cannot be blocked unless defending player pays an additional 3 for each creature assigned to block enchanted creature. Neato. This kind of reminds me of Brainwash from the Ice Age, I think. Hopefully that wasn't in Alliances. I just talked about the white cards. Wherever Brainwash was from, that wasn't Legends, was it? Whatever. Anyways, this is kind of similar to that. Otherwise, that's stupid to talk about. Awesome Presence is kind of okay. If you have a creature with a sweet does something to them when it hits them, like if you put this on a Hypnotic Spectre early game, that's pretty fucking rough. That's pretty brutal. Not that Hypnotic Spectre is in this set. From a limited standpoint, maybe this could do you some favor early on in the game, but limited in this, at least in my experience, by like all the games get to like turn 20-ish, if not more, and everybody just has a shitload of lands sitting around that they're not doing anything with. So this taxing stuff is especially terrible when you're not dealing with super efficient decks that can win with like 12 cards. So this is pretty bad and limited. Like, I mean, you could put it in, and if you draw it early, and there are situations where it could be decent, but it's not something that I would be excited to play or plan around or build around, because it just has such a small window to actually do anything valuable, at least in my experience. Yeah, the card sucks. So I don't know. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about it, other than like stupid shit that you could say about any card is like, yeah, if you draw a card every time you get an enchantment or shit like that. Yes, this is fine-ish, but it's still pretty low on the totem pole because all other enchantments get those bonuses too. Anyway, this was illustrated by Lawrence Snelly. I think this is another new name. Hell yeah, a lot of new artists in this set. I like it. This is pretty cool. It's a very classic Magic art to me. It almost feels kind of like and maybe it's just this piece specifically, but it almost feels kind of like a fusion of like Richard Kane Ferguson and Rebecca Gua's styles kind of together. I don't know, maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but I like this one. But it has two arts, and this one is also pretty cool. I like this one a lot too for different reasons, but I don't really have much to say about this, so let's just continue on. And we're keeping up with the commons with Benthic Explorers, a 2/4 that costs 3 and a blue. And you can tap Benthic Explorers to untap target tapped land an opponent controls to add 1 mana of any type that land produces to your mana pool. That's pretty interesting. That's kind of neat. That's kind of really neat. You can it's sort of like Ley Druid, except not anywhere near as good. For various reasons, but there are interesting things you could do with it. This would be a fun card to whip out in Commander, not because it's particularly good, but just because I think most players would look at this and be like, "Oh, that's kind of funky. That's funny." And it's a 2/4, which isn't bad. It won't die to a lightning bolt, right? You could chump some shit with it. Not much shit because it doesn't have any abilities, or it doesn't have any keywords rather. So it's not like flying or reach. But yeah, I don't know. It's not bad. It's kind of interesting. I would say it's pretty terrible in well, not terrible. It's a 2/4 for 4, so you could like defensively it's kind of okay, and you can do some funny stuff with it. Yeah, anyway, it's interesting, but there really isn't too much to say about it. So this is as I said, another common. There's two arts done by Greg Simonson, and the art's really good. I like this art a lot. Very, very pretty, detailed in interesting ways, and then less detailed in equally interesting ways. I like it a lot. And the other art is pretty cool too. Yeah, honestly, I don't know which one I like better. They're both interesting and different in unique ways. Yeah, I don't know. They're fine. I don't really have much to say about them though. Let's move on to Browse. Oh man. Browse is an uncommon. It's an enchantment that costs 2 and 2 blue mana. And when it's in play, you can pay 2 and 2 blue mana to look at the top 5 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand. Remove the remaining 4 from the game. So Browse is fucking hilarious. I really like browse for various reasons, and I want to believe there's stupid shit you can do with browse. It is definitely not efficient. It is not it is not a good card, but it's a funny card. And if you are trying to do some really stupid combo, I don't even know what combo applications are available in alliances. I should really have like figured that out before I can start talking about it. I can't think of any obvious combos that you would actually want to like go for specifically in alliances. Outside of that, like I mean, the world's your fucking oyster, right? But browse is so funny. I've used it a couple times in draft just as a haha funny, and in games that are not going to end in decking, it's pretty good. It's pretty okay. It's pretty funny. If you have like a solid win condition somewhere in your pile, this will maybe help you get there in time to win with it. To be fair, in limited, you can only do it a couple times though, because you have a 40 card deck. But it is really funny. I wouldn't draft this unless you're just trying to be haha funny, or you figure out some sort of Giga Chad combo, um, or have exactly one like creature worth beating down with. But you got to be careful too, because if you like browse down to like 0 cards in your deck, that creature's not going to do you any good unless it has haste, which it probably doesn't, and it needs to one shot at that point too. So just be careful. Browse is not good. It is not. It reads really, really interesting. If you want this effect, there are way cheaper ways to get it, uh, and ways that don't like exile all your shit. But I really fucking love this. Personally, I think this should be a red card, though. I think this would be way fucking better as a red card. I think it'd be funny as a red card. I think it would make sense as a red card. You can push back on that if you want to. But I think if this was a red card, it would be way more interesting. That being said, browse is pretty cool. I like it a lot. I think it's funny. It brings me a lot of joy. I'm glad cards like this exist. It's an uncommon in case I didn't mention that, and it was illustrated by Phil Foglio, one of the greatest. I love his work so much. It's so funny. He really helps give Magic, early Magic, a really awesome personality, which is very cool. But let's continue on. Oh, it's just banger after banger. Next, we have Diminishing Returns. Diminishing Returns is a rare. It is a sorcery that costs 2 and 2 blue mana. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library. Remove the top 10 cards of your library from the game. Each player draws up to 7 cards. So Diminishing Returns is pretty great. This card is not the most powerful, but it's certainly not weak. This is, I think this is the first attempt to fix Time Twister. It might not be the first attempt to fix Time Twister. There might be one earlier but I think this is the first time where they're like, yeah, Time Twister is a fun card, but it might be a little fucking much. Maybe we should like tap into that experience in a way that you can't just loop infinitely. Like Time Twister is the reason I made this dumb video where I showed how you can steal a large portion of the AI's deck using Bronze Tablet and bounce spells. And like Time Twister Black Lotus was like a major component of that fucking deck. Nothing says magic like non-deterministically looping fucking Time Twister 18 fucking times in a fucking turn. Now, later on, they would like try to fix this by having you exile the Time Twister clone that so that you can only do it once. Diminishing Returns, they didn't do that, but they did make you take the top 10 fucking cards off your library. And Diminishing Returns might be one of those cards. I would be hesitant to play this in limited just because of how slow the games are and how often it comes to decking. And if you're exiling 10, I would be hesitant. I mean, I would play it because it's really funny, and I would want to try it. I'd play it with my browse deck. I would browse for this. I bet you I can lose before you can kill me. Outside of limited, this card's a banger. It's not like good anymore. There are a bunch of Time Twister clones, and this one is maybe arguably the worst. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably not the worst one, but like there are better cards that you can do for than diminishing returns. That being said, it's pretty solid in Commander. 10 cards off the top, who gives a shit, right? Like, there's 20 to 30 at the bottom that you were never going to see, so what's the difference, right? So this is pretty cool and popular in Commander, and outside of Commander, there is definitely times. This is definitely not a terrible card. Depending on what card pool and ban list you're using, for whatever reason, this can be very good. But you don't need me to tell you that. Diminishing returns is really interesting. I like this card a lot. I'm a big fan of them, like trying to fix the power cards. And I think this attempt was pretty cool. I personally don't think that this card, like, personally, I don't know that Time Twister is that big of a deal. I mean, it definitely can be. Your Time Twister is a big deal. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Diminishing returns, I don't think is a big deal. I don't think that this card is too much. Obviously, I think oftentimes it doesn't even really see that much play. But I like it. I think it's a fun and interesting card. This was illustrated by Alan Williams, and the art's really cool. I don't really know the vibe of what we have going on here. But that's okay. I like it. I like the art. I like the card. It's a rare, in case I didn't mention that. All right, next we have False Demise. This is a common, and there are two arts for it. It is an enchant creature that costs 2 and a blue. If enchanted creature is put into the graveyard, return that creature to play under your control as though it were just cast. So this is very interesting because you can put this on a creature that you really want to keep around for whatever reason, whether it's a combo piece or it's just whatever your reasons are, it doesn't matter. And if that goes to the graveyard instead of getting exiled, then it just comes right back. That's pretty good. And interestingly, if you put this onto something, if they can't get rid of it, they probably will not waste the removal, removing the creature, because it'll just come back. And so then it won't even need to get used. Not always the case, obviously, and depending on what's going on, they may or may not decide to do that. Because it will come back with summoning sickness, so there's a time and a place where maybe they'll be like, well, shit, I gotta. Otherwise, the other obvious use case for this is to put it on an opponent's creature that you want for whatever reason, and then to somehow remove it to the graveyard, in which case you will get that creature. False Demise is interesting. It's pretty cool. I have not had much luck with it personally in limited, but I haven't actually had too much chance to use it effectively. It very rarely actually makes it into my list, and if it does make it into the list, it's because I didn't have enough good cards in blue, for whatever I was doing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that this is bad in limited, because it's just every situation I've had it has not been a situation it would be good in, but that just could be random luck. I haven't played billions of these games, so I certainly can't tell you like actual like what's perfect in most situations, which I don't know how useful that information would be anyway, because statistics don't mean to the individual, and whatever is most likely to be drawn doesn't matter to you in the game where they drew their win condition and all their removal. So it just, I don't know. Like, I think this one reads good, and despite never seeing it perform in any of my limited testing, I'm still kind of a believer of this. I think it's really cool and interesting. It's interesting as a blue card, for sure. Obviously, this would make sense as a black card. Depending on how you flavored it, it could make sense as a white card, and it could also make sense as a green card, I think, or a red card. Yeah, I think blue is the color I would least consider putting this into, but it is what it is. It's a pretty cool card. Outside of limited, you can probably do some funny stuff with it, but like, what's the fucking point? You have way better options for whatever you're trying to do. Anyway, let's talk about the art. This was done by Randy Gallegos. Gallegos? I don't know how the fuck that's supposed to be pronounced. I'm probably butchering that. Anyway, sorry about that. The art is good. It's really fantastic. I like his work. It's I keep fucking saying this, but it's a distinctive style, right? They're all fucking distinctive styles. That's what makes them great. I like this. I guess I don't have anything else to say about this one. Let's look at the other of these two arts. This one is so fucking funny. Like, yeah, no, I drowned. Quit paying attention to me. I like this one. I like this one a lot because this is ridiculous. This doesn't look like it would work, but whatever. You blowing bubbles. Okay. Very, very funny shit. But yeah, that's False Demise. An interesting card. Certainly not an incredibly strong card, but a kind of a fun one to play around with in the right circumstances. All right. I guess we're talking about Force of Will next. Force of Will. So, Force of Will is an uncommon. It is an interrupt or instant these days that costs 3 and 2 blue mana. But you may pay 1 life and remove a blue card in your hand from the game instead of paying Force of Will's casting cost. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Counter target spell. So, personally, I like Force of Will. I think this is a very fucking cool card, and I like counter magic. I like cards like this existing. There's definitely issues with stuff like this, but I personally prefer like higher power stuff. So I really appreciate Force of Will. Force of Will's cool in my opinion. This is a very powerful card. Still gets fucking played everywhere, and probably as long as blue cards are good, probably always will. Um, except for I guess Brawl. I was 0 minutes old when I learned that Brawl and competitive Brawl have different ban lists, I guess. I guess yeah, it makes sense. If you're gonna have a casual Brawl ban list, throwing Force of Will on there seems like a good idea. Assuming you get rid of everything that Force of Will protects the game from, because Force of Will is far from the only, if you want to call it a design mistake in the game, but it is the most beneficial of them by doing a lot against all of the other ones. The card is super versatile. You can stop somebody from winning the game instantly with their combo. You can stop them from stopping you from winning the game with your combo. You can fucking counter whatever the hell you want. It's a hard counter. So anything you don't want them casting, you could just say no for the low price of 2 cards out of your hand and no fucking mana. Yeah, Force of Will is really fucking good. You know it's really good. It's okay in limited. Like you, it feels like you're never getting the bang for your buck with Force of Will in limited, but I would still run it. It's so funny. It's not bad in limited. And honestly, in limited, Force of Will getting hard cast is quite a bit more common because the games go longer and whatever you're probably afraid of them having is probably big and will take them a while to get out. So I think I've hardcast Force of Will more times than I've like used its effect, specifically in limited. Outside of that, I have hardcast Force of Will, but it doesn't happen often. Force of Will is great. I don't know what else to say about it. Like it's such a popular and powerful card. I mean, a lot of people fucking hate it, which to be fair, I understand because counter spells can feel unfair to a lot of players think they are unfair. That is not an opinion I have, but I can see where they're coming from. And a lot of players think cards that you don't spend mana on are unfair, and that one is easier for me to agree with. So if you take a counter spell and just make it so somebody can do this whenever for just a card in the color that is most likely to be able to draw cards, I can see why someone would be mad about this. So if you think counter spells and stuff are fucking bullshit, I can empathize. I disagree. I think they're fun and hilarious. But I can respect that. I guess that's really all I have to say on Force of Will. It's a fucking great card. Obviously, it's good anywhere. Anywhere with enough blue to make use of it, right? Like if you're not running much blue, Force of Will is hard to justify. But there have been plenty of cards that have been like partially as good as they are because you can pitch them to Force of Will. I think that's part of the reason Psychic Frog is enjoyed. I mean, that card's really good on its own anyway, but it's just an extra little benefit of it. Da da da. I guess that's really all I have. The art is fantastic. I love the art. It's very, very cool. Very, very iconic art. Done by illustrated by Therese Nielsen. She always did great work. A lot of her stuff is very pretty. I guess that's all I really have on Force of Will, so let's move on to Foresight. Foresight is a common. It is a sorcery and it costs 1 and a blue. Search your library for any 3 cards and remove them from the game. Shuffle your library afterwards. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So this is pretty interesting, and arguably these days does have like some weird use cases, because you could run this with Squee, the one that you can cast from exile, and there's a couple other creatures you can cast from exile, so you could run those and use this as a way of like consistently getting them if you're planning on doing like some food chain bullshit or something. But that's kind of a stretch. There really isn't. Otherwise, you would be using this because you don't have enough cards in your draft deck. And you have some bad cards in your draft deck that you don't want to draw. Because it replaces itself for the low cost of 2 mana and the next upkeep. I don't know. This card is interesting and I like it because it makes you think, and there's definitely some things you can do with it, but it's not particularly good. It's specifically in limited, it's not really good at all. Outside of that, you could make some arguments for some stupid stuff that you could do with this, but it's by no means a an absolute banger, but it is a very interesting and cool card. It's another one of those cards that I'm really happy exists, just because I liked when Magic made a lot of cards that were not useful, but were just weird and did interesting things to the game so that you could experiment and like figure things out. Is a very naive time for Magic, I guess. And I just appreciate that. I like stuff like this. I think it's really cool. But I guess that's all I have on this one. This is a common, so there are 2 arts for it, and they were done by Therese Nielsen. This one is fantastic, very lovely piece of work. And this one is also really well done. I don't know what else to say about it. It's pretty. I think I like the other one a little bit better, but they're both pretty cool and interesting in their own way. That's all I really have on this though. So we'll move on to Lat-Nam's Legacy. Lat-Nam's Legacy is a common. It is an instant that costs 1 and a blue. And choose a card from your hand and shuffle that card into your library to draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Now this is actually pretty useful, even in limited. So this replaces itself, not immediately, but it does replace itself. And if you have a card that is like not good against this matchup, or a card that, or it's very early into the game, you don't have a turn 2 play, or your turn 3 play was a fucking 1 mana thing or whatever, something like that happens, and you have a card that you just can't cast for whatever reason, or don't want to cast, you can put it back to maybe get later, or just maybe not have this game, and then draw 2 cards. So this replaces itself, and it doesn't plus you though. So this isn't, I wouldn't call this good, but this is limited good. This definitely could serve a purpose in limited, especially if you were playing a 3 color deck. But outside of that, effectively what you're doing is trading 2 cards for 2 different cards, and one goes back to the library, so this doesn't bring you as close to decking as some of the other cards we've talked about, but other than that, this isn't good. It's kind of interesting. It's better than Foresight, in my opinion, at least in like the low power places where something like this would likely see play. I don't think that this has any real combo applications other than just digging for it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all I really have on this. It's not particularly good. Like I said, it's a common. 2 arts for this one. These were done by Tom Warnerstrand, and I really like this one. The little blue men just doing maintenance on the library with their little ladder is just so, it's cute. I like it. I think it's fun. And going back to the little blue men, this one is fun too. I like the art for these two. I think he did great. Very funny. But that's all I have on this card. So let's move on to Library of Lat-Nam. This is a rare. This is a rare. It costs 4 and a blue. It is a sorcery, and target opponent chooses one. You draw 3 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, or or you search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So this card is not good. It's not awful. It's pretty funny in Commander because of the whole politicking thing. Commander or any multiplayer format actually is interesting because it kind of adds the concept of positioning to the game of Magic in a way that it otherwise doesn't really exist, or at least doesn't exist in the same sense. And one thing you can do with a card like this is you could say, hey, this is a threat. I have a piece of removal that can deal with this threat. I'm gonna cast this. You need to say I can tutor, and then go get that thing. So you can force that. In those situations, it is a tutor. You get a hard tutor. You can play in mono blue. So that's pretty useful. However, in order to tutor, you are going to have to convince an opponent to let you do that. And you probably don't want, like, if you promise to go get a piece of removal, you should probably go get a piece of removal. Although you could, since it doesn't show the card, you could, if you already have that piece of removal, say you'll do that. That's a little dishonest, but you could do that. Outside of Commander, this is, like, not really good. Giving your opponent a choice is never a good idea, because they'll pick whatever, like, if they're as good of a player or understand the game as well as you, they're going to, if you're both relatively high level, they'll pick the thing that you don't want them to pick. Now, granted, draw 3 is the other option, and that's not that bad either. So this card is still, I wouldn't say it's terrible. I would definitely justifiable to play in like Commander. Maybe not like the highest levels, but outside of that, it's definitely justifiable in Commander. But yeah, it's an interesting rare. It's a very fun card. 5 mana this would be way cooler at 4 mana, in my opinion. At 4 mana, this is a conversation. I think 5 mana is kind of a lot, especially since you can't really determine how it's going to play out for you. It's a very interesting and very cool card, but it's not particularly good. Anyway, this was illustrated by Alan Rabinowitz, and the art's awesome. I'm a big fan of the art. It's so funny. This is Phantasmal Sphere. This is a 0/1 that costs 1 and a blue. It has flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on Phantasmal Sphere. During your upkeep, pay 1 for each of these +1/+1 counters, or bury Phantasmal Sphere. Bury means that it can't goes to the grave and can't be regenerated. Anyway, if Phantasmal Sphere leaves play, put an orb token into play under target opponent's control. Treat this token as a star blue creature with flying, where star is equal to the number of these +1/+1 counters on Phantasmal Sphere. What a bad deal. Oh, they could not balance cards that give you counters. So this is interesting. It has effectively cumulative upkeep in an interesting way. In fact, it is basically exactly cumulative upkeep but instead of giving an age counter, it gives a +1/+1 counter that also functions as an age counter, which is interesting. That's actually pretty cool. And this is decent enough in limited if you can plan ahead well enough. But if you don't get it exactly right, you especially if you let it get too big, you're gonna run into a problem because you're gonna give them a cube that is just 1 toughness less than what you had. So if it's like a 5/5, you think of if this was a 5/6 flyer, then they have a 5/5 flyer. Super fun, super good. This card is bad. I think I've drafted it a couple times, and it has never been a situation where I was willing to risk it. But this is kind of funny. It is kind of interesting. If it had an ability that allowed you to pay 1 per +1/+1 counter on it to have that second ability not work, so if it came down to it, you could be like, okay, I have to dump a shitload of mana in this to prevent you from getting one, then I would think this is pretty cool and a pretty playable card. But as it stands, the downsides are too much. It's interesting. It can become big. This certainly can win you a game. It's a flying creature that can be like a fucking 6/6. But you're gonna maybe run into issues. if like now this is an aggro card, I guess you could say to some degree. Not really. It's like I guess mid range is more like it's more like because you'd want to play it later when you had a bunch of lands, so you know that you would get the amount of value out of it that you need to get out of it. Um, and this certainly can win you the game, but like reprisal is I think reprisal is a common, right? So like once this gets to 4, they can just blow it up and get a free 4/4 flyer, or if they get greedy, get a 5/5 or a 6/6 flyer. So I don't know. Of course, you could also have a reprisal in hand, and then once this gets past, once this gets past a 4/4, then you just don't give a shit anymore because you'll just whenever it goes away, you'll reprisal their token. So you can play around this, which is kind of interesting. But again, I would be cautious of it even in limited, and if you can't make it work in limited without like real combo application, I don't really see what you're doing with it outside of limited. Obviously, like it's funny, but it's not great. I guess I guess these days you could combine this with a Braid of Fire from Cold Snap. So that gives you the mana during your upkeep because it's not during main phase, and it wouldn't do it during the draw phase. So yeah, if I'm remembering that card correctly, I guess you could do that. That's kind of funny. But you still get fucked if like somebody removes it. So yeah, overall not a good card, but it is an interesting card. But let's talk about the art before I move on. Phantasmal Sphere was illustrated by Mark Tadine. Fantastic work. Love the card a lot. Mark's work is great. I enjoy a lot of it, and this one is very, very cool. I like the story of the card. It's very interesting. I'm not quite sure how or why an opponent just gets it because it doesn't even do the same thing for them. They just get the benefit of the like it goes away and they just get a really powerful cube that doesn't require anything from them. Um, that's another way you could have gone. Like if the cumulative upkeep continued and then like they got a token that was just basically the same thing and then it would just bounce back and forth, which would be really funny. I don't know. Um, that would be pretty cool. But let's move on to Soldevi Heretic. Soldevi Heretic is a common. It is a 2/2 that costs 2 and a blue. You can pay a white mana and tap this to prevent up to 2 damage to any creature. Target opponent may draw a card. This is pretty bad. At the bottom, it's just a gray ogre, which is okay in limited, I guess. White is an ally of blue, and they did a lot of working with the allies to solidify the whole enemy and ally colors that they very much cared about at the time, which I agree. I think it's a cool concept, and I wish Magic cared about it more these days. But this card's pretty bad. Your opponent drawing a card, like I guess in limited you could fucking try to deck them with this. And there is enough cards in sport that you can kind of do that, especially if you're like going to combine this with Arcane Denial and removal and stuff like that. Especially because with this, one white mana open and one creature that's pretty big, you can like chump block everything forever. So yeah, in limited, if you have a deck built around, like if you manage to get like some reprisals and some arcane denials and some big fat butt boys, the Soldevi Heretic can be okay. It'll be the worst card in the deck. So, but it would be somewhat playable in that situation. Otherwise, this is bad. I don't know why you would ever want to try to use this in like not limited. So I don't even know what we would be talking about here. But in limited, it's bad. It's still pretty bad. Yeah, I guess that's all I have. It's a common, so there are 2 arts for this. It was illustrated by Mike Kimball. This art is pretty good. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't have anything else to say about it though. All right. This one is also pretty funny. Looks like dude's in his bathrobe. All right. Next, we have another common. This is Soldevi Sage, a 1/1 that costs 1 and a blue. And you can tap Soldevi Sage and sacrifice 2 lands to draw 3 cards. Choose and discard one of those cards. This card is interesting. It's not it's okay actually in this limited, like depending on what your deck looks like and what your win condition is and how you're trying to go about the game. If you can handle drawing some cards to because you're more aggressive or at least have a win condition that can do it. I have activated this a couple of times in limited. I have definitely like not played this more times and used it to like pitch to a force of will or something more times than I've like used this and activated it and had it been beneficial, but it has come up. Outside of that, like this is actually kind of interesting if you're doing some really stupid shit. Like if you have a Crucible world, this is kind of funny. I mean, you can do better stuff with a Crucible world than this, but this is not bad. I will say this is a very interesting downside for blue specifically, just because blue has trouble getting extra lands into play. I mean, it's hard to look at a card that says tap, draw 3 cards and say it's bad, right? It's certainly not like super good. Technically, you are going 0 in card advantage because you're sacking 2 lands. So unless, I mean, if you have Crucible World, you're changing those numbers around, but on its own, this card is going +0. You're sacking 2 lands and discarding one of the 2 cards or one of the 3 cards you drew. So you'll end up with 2 less cards in play and 2 more cards in your hand. And that's not to say that filtering is bad. It's hard to look at a card like this and say it's bad. I don't think it's super particularly good. But it's certainly interesting in Commander, and it can come up in Limited, but it's not super likely to. It is a common, so we have 2 arts for this one as well, and this was illustrated by Carol Hayer. This art is well done. I think that's the first time I'm saying Carol's name too. I like the art. It's very good. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's very nicely well detailed, equally well done. That book, the perspective on that book feels a little wrong to me. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It feels like the 2 sides are different. I don't know. It might be an illusion. It's messing with me. Otherwise, the art is pretty good in this one too. I don't know. I don't have anything else. Let's move on to Spiny Starfish. This is an uncommon. It is a 0/1 that costs 2 and a blue. You can pay a blue to regenerate it. This thing is awesome. I'm a big fan. At the end of any turn in which Spiny Starfish regenerated, put a Starfish token into play for each time it regenerated that turn. Treat these tokens as 0/1 blue creatures. So this is interesting. This is a Johnny card. This is very interesting. Gets the gears going, you know. It's not super great, but I love this card so much. It's funny. It is very, very funny. This card is fun. This card is interesting. In limited, it's pretty okay. It just all it does is negates one of their blockers a turn if they swing in, and then you get a token. It's also on board, right? So like if you're playing with someone with a functioning brain, they won't just let you just make a bunch of shit, right? They won't keep bashing their head against the wall, probably. But I do think this should see more Commander play just because it's adorable and amazingly hilarious. This was illustrated by Ellen Rabinowitz, and banger art. Love it a lot. Great card. But let's continue on, I suppose. All right. Next we have Stormcrow. Stormcrow is a common. It is a 1/2 that costs 1 and a blue, and it has flying. Oh my god. They power crept Bird Maiden. Oh man. No, joking aside, it's Stormcrow. Probably heard about this. I think the meme is fucking finally dead, but I don't know. The colossal Dreadmaw meme is still going around, so maybe Stormcrow is too. If you don't know, people used to joke around and say Stormcrow is a very, very, very good card, and it's better than a lot of cards because you can pitch it to Force of Will, and all sorts of other copium and jokes like that. Very, very funny stuff. But I'm here to tell you, Stormcrow is a pretty fucking good card. At least in the instance of limited. This is a 1/2 for 2 mana. That's pretty fucking good for this limited specifically. This thing can jump a lot of the flyers in this set, and Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's actually very, very valuable to grab this card in limited specifically. Pretty shit late game, but yeah, I mean, if they don't have flyers, even late game, it's pretty solid. I have won many a limited game swinging in with carrier pigeons and storm crows. So, yeah, it's fine. It's a fucking 1/2 with flying. I probably wouldn't even spend this much time on it if it wasn't for the meme. So I guess we'll move on. It's better than you think, specifically in this limited. Obviously, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's a 1/2 flyer, so there's a lot of stuff that it can deal with. The power of a lot of stuff is pretty low in this set. Not all of it. There is like 4/4s and 5/5s and fucking 10/4. So it can't deal with everything. But at the end of the day, you can also pitch it to Force of Will. Anyway, Stormcrow is a common. There's 2 arts for it. And this was illustrated by Sandra Everingham, who I can't remember if she's still art director or not, but she was art director for a while. She did Homelands, and the art is like the only thing that was any good in that. So I think she's art director now, but I might be wrong. No idea off the top of my head. Anyway, this art is pretty solid, but there's also this one. And this art is also pretty solid. I like them both. They aren't like they don't really do anything different. They're kind of the same piece, just different angles. It's fine. Anyway, let's move on to Storm Elemental. Storm Elemental is an uncommon. It is a 3/4 that costs 5 and a blue. It has flying, and you can pay a blue to remove the top card of your library from the game to tap target creature with flying. And you can pay a blue and remove the top card of your library from the game. If that card is a snow-covered land, Storm Elemental gives +1/+1 until end of turn. Oh my god, this is so funny. I've read this card like a bunch and I've even played with it, but I don't think until this moment it actually registered to me that those are 2 separate abilities. So it would be so much cleaner if it was just pay, pay a blue, remove the top card of your from your library from the game, and if it happens to be a snow land, it gets +1/+1. I guess you can do top deck manipulation, but are you really gonna do top deck manipulation to get to remove a card from your library to get a +1/+1 until end of turn? End of turn. Holy shit. This is really bad. And it's really bad in a funny way too, because it's not like you can pay the blue, remove the card, and then if it's a snow land, decide to give the +1/+1, otherwise tap the creature. If you go for the +1/+1, you just have a really good chance of fucking missing and getting nothing for your trouble. That's funny. That's really hilarious. Card should not have been designed this way. This is bad. This is a bad card. That being said, it is a 3/4 flyer for 6 mana, which isn't great, but in limited, like, don't use its ability. I mean, maybe you can tap one of their creatures for flying. That's actually not too terrible in limited. At least that ability doesn't like require anything else. And then you can truck right on in. Outside of limited, this is really bad. Don't play this. I guess that's all I got. The art is sick as fuck though. This was illustrated by John Matson, and it's kind of a almost Beholder style like bat slug, which is just very fucking cool. I like it a lot. It's a cool art. The card itself sucks though. So let's move on. All right, then we have Suffocation, an uncommon. This is an instant that costs 1 and a blue. Play only when a red sorcery or instant deals damage to you. Suffocation deals 4 damage to that spell's caster. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Well, I mean, if you're playing against Burn, it's a decent sideboard card. As far as hate cards go, this is really funny. It's not that big of a deal, but it replaces itself and it does 4 damage to him. I kind of like it. I think it's funny. It's not really good enough to like ever actually like sideboard this though, and in limited, like there's for red instants or sorceries that deal burn, I think there's Death Spark and Guerrilla Tactics. I think there's Pyrokinesis too, but that only hits creatures. I think there's just those two. So like this is never gonna fucking come up. And also they're way better being used as creature removal than incidental burn damage in this limited. So suffocation is just never gonna fucking come up, which is a shame. It's a funny card, but I mean, if you're playing against somebody who plays like a commander that does a lot of red burn with instants and sorceries for various reasons, suffocation can be super fucking funny. But even then, I would say it's not good, and you're just doing it to be hilarious. So yeah, there isn't much to say here. This was illustrated by Alan Williams, and the art's very cool. I like the art. It's very, very pretty. I think it's really cool that they're red wax candles too. Very metaphorical, if you will. But let's move on. Oh boy, to Thought Lash. Buckle up for this one, dudes. Thought Lash is a rare. It is an enchantment that costs 2 and 2 blue mana. It has cumulative upkeep. Remove the top card of your library from the game. If you do not, remove your library from the game and bury Thought Lash. So that's pretty fucking intense. If you play this, you are gonna remove first 1 card, and then 2 cards, and then 3 cards, and then 4 cards. And if for whatever reason you cannot do that, all of your library goes away. So if a card is drawn on your side, you will lose. So that's pretty intense, right? So the effect's got to be fucking insane, right? Well, you can remove the top card of your library from the game to prevent 1 damage to you. Wow, that's worth exiling my whole deck for. I wonder what happened here. This card is so sick. I really, really love cards that have such an obscene cost to them that most people just are gonna check out immediately. I I don't think those cards should be like Necropotence level good, where they just fucking warp the game and you fucking have to deal with them. But they should probably be better than fucking exile a card to prevent 1 damage to you. I mean, maybe there's some really dumb combo you can do with this where, because I guess if you could generate infinite mana, you could fucking Earthquake and then just prevent enough to not die. I guess that'd be pretty funny. Um, you could also just accomplish that with like being 3 short and lightning bolting them or something. So like you don't have to do something like this for that. And that's a stretch anyway. This card is disappointing to me because it's such a debilitating downside to use this that I kind of want it to be good just because I want to be able to like mess around with this and feel like it's worth it. It just does not feel worth it to me. If anyone is like making this work anywhere and doing something genuinely interesting with it where it's not just for the memes, where it's like it's legitimately the most efficient way to be doing that thing, I do not know about it, but it's probably fucking hilarious. um Outside of that, I don't know. It's such a like it's not even prevent damage to your creatures. So it's not like you can play this down in a limited game and just fucking go hog wild and swing in. Um and like force the game state because they'll either have to take all that damage or they'll have to block. And then if you had like the cards to remove to like so they trade like this is interesting. Then this is something worth considering doing. But as it stands, it just becomes a waiting game. Another thing that's really interesting about this is blue is all about the waiting game, but this is not a waiting game card. Like you are going to you are very quickly pissing away resources doing this. And just to prevent 1 damage per other resource, and they double dip into the same resource too, right? So like the more you use this, the less long you can have it for. It's definitely interesting, and I don't know, maybe there are some situations where it's really good. It's certainly a fucking cool card. I like this card a lot. But it's very interesting. I just wish the effect was way better on it. This is a rare in case I forgot to mention that, and this was illustrated by Mark Tadine, and the art's phenomenal. The art is so fucking sick. The art's probably goes a long way towards why I think this card is so good. I think it's biasing me in that direction. But the effect is also not the effect, the cost is very fucking cool. The effect just is not worth it. But let's move on to Title Control, another rare. Tidal Control is an enchantment that costs 1 and 2 blue mana. It has cumulative upkeep 2, so that's pay 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, and it's probably gone by then. Any player may pay 2 or 2 life to counter target red or green spell. Oh, wait, no, this is funny as fucking Commander. Play this ability as an interrupt. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Man, this is funny in Commander if you play against someone who plays fucking Gruul. Get fucked, nerd. You can all just gang up on him. Just beat him down. You ain't casting shit, dog. Getting fucked. Oh, yeah, this is so funny, especially because, like, you can be like, look, guys, I'm paying 2 and then 4 and then 6. We really got to slow this asshole down, so you guys are going to have to counter his shit. Like, I played the card, I'm paying the cume. You guys pay life or pay mana, I don't care, but pay something. Get these shit out of here. That's very funny. It's not good. Like, this card is not good for obvious reasons. Color hate, again, at least it hits both of them. But in a 1v1 setting, I don't think it's worth it at all. Like, maybe against, like, maybe in Forge, the bot is going to be dumb enough to, like, cash shit into this, but otherwise, it's just like, why not just wait, right? Like, it's just going to get countered anyway. But I guess if you can, like, prevent them from doing anything for a while, this might be decent, specifically against a red-green deck in Limited, but it probably is not a great rare to get. Anyway, I guess that's all I really have on this one. It was illustrated by Randy Gallegos, and I like it a lot. I think it's quite fun and very hilarious and interesting. Love the lobsters. I don't know if these are hominids or just lobsters, lobster people. I'm not entirely sure. Kind of looks like probably hominids, but it's hard to say. I mean, there are viscerids, is what they call them in this set. So there are viscerids, so like maybe. Yeah, we're gonna fucking talk about that, aren't we? Anyway, let's move on. That's all I have for this one. The art's pretty okay. Speaking of Viscerid Armor, this is a common. It is an enchant creature and it costs 1 in a blue. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and then you can pay 1 in a blue to return Viscerid Armor to owner's hand. Yeah, pretty decent. For the same reason that Keldoran Pride is decent, this is slightly better. It's 2 mana, you get +1/+1. +1/+2 is like really relevant a lot of the time, surprisingly. But +1/+1 is still pretty good. I don't often play this, because it doesn't normally come up. Usually my card pool's not bad enough that I like have to play this. But this card certainly isn't awful. It's +1/+1 for 2 mana, which kind of sucks. But if like that creature gets destroyed, you can return this to its hand, to the owner's hand, and recast it. That's going to cost you 4 mana over probably 2 turns, which is rough. But it does mitigate the downside of enchantments, where it 2-for-1s you when the creature gets removed. Because when you have a enchantment that you really, or a creature enchantment that you really need out, that thing can now be removed by creature removal, enchantment removal. If it's an artifact creature, artifact removal, right? Like, it's very easy to get rid of at that point. So this is okay. It's pretty okay. But that's really all I have on it. It was illustrated by Heather Hudson, and this art is fucking hilarious. I love this a lot. I love the little samurai outfit for the Viscerid. It's very, very cool. And then we have this art, which is the same guy, but now he's scaring the shit out of the common folk. I like Heather's work. This one is fantastic. They're both really good. They're both very funny. But let's move on to the final blue card. We have Viscerid Drone. Viscerid Drone is an uncommon. This is a 1/2. And you can tap and sacrifice a creature and a swamp to bury target non-artifact creature. Alright, so you can tap this, sack a creature and a land to take out a non-artifact creature. Or you can tap it, sack a creature, and a snow-covered swamp to bury a different creature. Yeah, this thing's pretty good. You just blow up all their good creatures. As long as you can keep one creature ahead. You do have to have quite a few swamps. So in limited, the uses of this are going to be pretty limited, depending on how you're doing the draft or limited. If you have access to snowlands, this is going to be better. If you don't have access to snowlands, this is still going to be okay. But there are some decent artifact creatures. But I mean, even so, you are this isn't great. You are trading a land and a creature for each of their creatures that you take out, which could potentially be a problem, but later in the game, if this doesn't get fucking blown up or removed somehow, it's a fairly powerful card in limited. It's not insane though. I guess let me say it's kind of easy to misplay with this card because you're giving up a lot of resources, so the creatures that you remove have got to be worth it. You can't just willy-nilly be removing everything. And now, I mean, how obvious that's probably pretty obvious, but it is something to look out for if you are playing this card. But this card is pretty funny. I guess that's all I have. Viscera Drone is interesting. It's certainly not bad. I'd probably pick it up because having removal is pretty nice. It's interesting to be a blue card that just takes out a creature, but it requires swamp, so I guess it's a sort of a Dimir card, and it's okay. This was illustrated by Heather Hudson. I like the art. I think it was well illustrated. It's quite fun. But yeah, that's it for the blue cards. They are pretty fucking good. There's a lot of cards in here that are worth considering. Diminishing returns is something that like can see play in real formats. Not a lot of I guess I actually don't know. I wouldn't assume that it still sees like any legacy or vintage play, but I might be wrong. Otherwise, Arcane Denial, that card is definitely worth considering somewhere sometimes. Force of Will, obviously a fucking banger, still sees play, very, very fucking good card. And otherwise, like there's other just interesting cards too. Like Thought Lace is really, really thought provoking. It's bad, but it's interesting. Stormcrow is the funny meme card, or at least was. Um, Browse is fantastic. There's a lot of cards that are fun and interesting. I really like looking through the blue cards. It certainly helps that there are like some very powerful staple cards. But even beyond that, like the dorky cards are really fucking fun and interesting. This set has a lot of really cool stuff in it. Um, a lot of really cool stuff in it. They did so far. I've been very happy with these, but I guess that's all I have for the blue cards.